Okay, so the next question in the practice test was for you to change the improper fractions you see here into mixed numbers. Now remember, in order to change it to a mixed fraction, you need to find out how many times the denominator goes into the numerator. So in this case, we've got 16 over 12. It's improper because the denominator is smaller than the numerator, or the numerator is bigger than the denominator. So that's called an improper fraction. Now, again, we need to make sure that in order to change it to a mixed fraction, we need to find out how many times the denominator goes into the numerator. Now, if you look at the multiples of 12 down here in the times table, you'll see that we've got 12 times 1 equals 12. So 12 goes into 12 one time. But then the next multiple of 12 is 24. So 24 is bigger than 16. So we know that there's going to be a remainder. There's going to be something left over. So 12, we know definitely that 12 goes into 16 at least once. So we can say 1. So 12 goes into 16 one time as a whole. But then we have some leftovers. What are those leftovers? What is that remainder? To find out what the remainder is, all we have to do is get the numerator, which is 16, and then minus 12, and then we find out what the leftover is. 16 minus 12 equals 4, right? So then this remainder, we put that as the numerator. So the remainder becomes the numerator. So we put 1, which is a whole number, because 12 goes into 16 once as a whole, so that's a whole number. And then we put the remainder up on the top here as the numerator. Now, again, remember we said that whenever you change an improper fraction to a mixed fraction, the denominator will always stay the same. So if the denominator will stay the same, that means that the denominator has to be 12, because the denominator here is 12. So basically what we've got here is, the way we've got this answer is basically finding out how many times does 12 go into 16. It goes into 16 once, but then we have a remainder of 4. This 4 is basically getting the numerator and minusing it from the denominator. And that remainder becomes the numerator. And as we just said earlier, we leave the denominator the same. So far, so good. We actually changed this improper fraction to a mixed fraction. But the question's asking to make sure that we express it in its simplest form. Now we can see here that 4 over 12, we have to ask the question, is there one number that goes into the numerator and the denominator? And the answer is yes. If you need to find out how many times 4 goes into 12, let's have a look at the multiples of 4. Because there's no point looking at the multiples of 12, because 12 does not go into 4 equally. So we have to look at the multiples of 4. So if we come across here to the times table and look at the multiples of 4, we can see that 4 times 1 is 4, 4 times 2 is 8, 4 times 3 is 12. Okay, so we've got 12 here, and we know that 12 divided by 4 is 3. So, in order to find that one number that goes into both numbers equally, remember we said that we have to look at the times table and we have to find the numerator and the denominator in the same row or the same column. So in this case, we've found that. We've satisfied that rule. We can see that we have the numerator here and we have the denominator here. So the numerator and the denominator is in the same row, which means that the number 4 goes into both numbers equally. So 4 divided by 4 is 1, and 12 divided by 4 is 3. And let's not forget to make sure that we include the number 1 that we've got over here. Now, this will be your final answer because we cannot simplify 1 over 3 anymore, because the only number that goes into both numbers equally is the number 1, and there's no point dividing both the numerator and the denominator by 1 because you get the same answer. So this will be your final answer. Okay, so for the next question, 132 over 60, we don't even need to use the times table, at least for the beginning, because you know right away that the denominator is at least half than the numerator. So for example, you can see that 60 will go into 132 at least twice. For example, 60 plus 60 is 120. 0 plus 0 is 0, 6 plus 6 is 12. So we know definitely that 60 will go into 132 equally twice. So we write down the number 2 on the outside. But there is a remainder. To find out the remainder, remember, all we do is we get the numerator, which is 132, and we minus it from the total number down here, which is 120. Okay, so 2 minus 0 is 2. 3 minus 2 is 1. And 1 minus 1 is 0. So nothing. So the remainder, which will go in the numerator, is 12. So now we can write 12 here as the numerator. And if you remember, the rule is that we always keep the denominator the same. So in this case, the denominator is 60. So now we write 60 here. So we can see that now we've changed the improper fraction to a mixed fraction. We've got the whole number out here. This means that 60 goes into 132 twice, and the remainder is 12, which is the numerator, and the denominator stays the same. Okay, so the next question is, are we able to simplify this anymore? Can we simplify the 12 and the 60? Well, if we now look at our times table, we can see that there is a number 12 down here. 12 times 1 is 12. And also, if we go along, remember we have to find the numerator and the denominator in the same row or the same column. I'm just choosing the row because I think it's easier, but it's up to you, it doesn't matter. But we've got the number 12, so we've got one numerator, and if we keep going along the multiples of 12, we can see the number 60. So now we've got the denominator in the same row as well. So let's circle that. So now we know that the number 12 goes into both the numerator and the denominator, because 12 divided by 12 is 1, and 60 divided by 12 is 5. So let's now put those in there. So 12 divided by 12 is 1, and 60 divided by 12 is 5. Okay, let's not forget to put the 2 on the outside. So now we've simplified the fraction to its simplest form. We can't simplify this anymore because, again, the only number that goes into the numerator and the denominator is the number 1, and we get the same answer if we divide number 1 on the top and the bottom, so there's no point doing that. Now, you may notice that there's also a number 12 here and a number 60 over here. So we've got the numerator and the denominator in the same row. So in this case, 12 divided by 6 is 2, and 60 divided by 6 is 10. We could use that, but again, remember that we want to try and choose the higher common factor. So 12 is a higher common factor than 6. So it's better just to go straight to 12, and that means that we won't have to make an extra step.